It is a strange paradox of human psychology that the exact same event that violently tears down your life can become the foundation for a much more resilient version of yourself. When a career path ends abruptly or a personal conflict upends your routine, the immediate aftermath is rarely about growth. It's about the acute pain and the genuine confusion of realizing that your plans for the future no longer exist. It's important to clarify that this isn't a silver lining narrative. Pain is agonizing, and setbacks don't happen to teach us a lesson. A crisis is simply a disruption, and the damage it causes is real. However, there is a specific risk in the before state. When life is predictable and comfortable, we tend to stay in place. Constant safety allows old habits and outdated coping mechanisms to remain, even if they no longer serve us. Losing that safety is devastating, but that disruption is often the only mechanism capable of breaking through our psychological stagnation and forcing a genuine evolution. This process mirrors basic biology. Just as physical muscle only grows by working against the heavy friction of a weight, mental strength requires psychological friction to develop beyond its current capacity. We can see this play out in our functional capacity. We start at a baseline of normal functioning, but when a crisis hits, that capacity plummets. You enter a period of disruption where you are less capable than you were before. This breakdown is actually a prerequisite for what comes next. By tearing down the old, brittle structures of how you used to operate, you create the space to climb out of the valley and reach a higher level of adaptation than where you started. A setback isn't just an obstacle to your progress. It is the specific catalyst that builds the capacity to handle future pressure. When the environment changes overnight, the brain can no longer rely on its automated habits. The old map doesn't match the new terrain, forcing a state of high-alert adaptation. To survive this foreign reality, the brain is forced to rewire its pathways. It begins building new connections to process the stress, physically adapting to handle a level of difficulty that would have been overwhelming just weeks prior. Psychologists have a specific term for this process of rebuilding after the dust settles. It's called post-traumatic growth. It describes the positive psychological change that occurs specifically as a result of struggling with a highly challenging life crisis. The struggle itself provides the data the mind needs to construct a more durable way of interacting with the world. Consider a career setback. In the moment, it feels like the end of your professional identity, but months later, that loss often reveals itself as the force that pushed you to learn a new skill set or find a path better suited to your actual talents. In a personal crisis, like a painful breakup, the initial state is a sense of isolation. Yet that period of being alone often forces the development of emotional independence, a trait you might never have cultivated if you were still comfortable. In both cases, the pain was the starting point, but the slow, difficult process of adapting to that pain was what actually created the growth. This shift is rarely visible while you're in the middle of the crisis. It only becomes apparent during the months of rebuilding that follow the storm. However, this growth isn't a passive process. Reaching a new level of resilience isn't guaranteed simply because you suffered. The direction you take, whether you stagnate or adapt, depends on the specific choices you make while you are rebuilding your life. One of the most effective tools is to look for the hidden shifts. You may find that your priorities have clarified, or that you now have a much higher threshold for stress than you did before the crisis hit. This requires a shift in focus. Instead of focusing entirely on the unfairness of the situation, you move towards a state of observation, asking what the current situation requires you to learn in order to move forward. Shifting that internal question changes how the brain processes the setback, moving it out of a state of paralysis and into active reconstruction. You don't get to choose the storms that hit your life. Tragedies and failures often arrive without warning and without your consent. But you do have control over how you rebuild after the storm has passed. The difficulties you are navigating right now are the specific weights that are building your capacity for whatever comes next. Our greatest setbacks often become the defining moments of our personal growth. If this perspective helped you, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more insights into the science of the human mind. Let's keep growing together.